Hey everybody, David Gretl here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest, returning guest, is Gretl Siler. She is the founder and CEO of Lighthouse CPAs. And when we talked to her on a prior episode, we were talking about buying an accounting firm. And this episode is really a continuation of that topic. You know, we're now in a post-COVID environment. She's continued to acquire firms, and we're going to talk about that journey, what she looks for, when's the right time to acquire them, and so much more. But Gretl, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, David. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about how many you've acquired either with or under the Lighthouse CPA brand.
Well, under the Lighthouse CPA brand, I've bought six. And two of them were when I was in another city, and I built those up some and then actually turned around and sold them when I moved to where I am now.
Okay. So you're currently operating, they're all operating, as one right now, or are they four separate firms, or how does that look today?
No, the ones that I've purchased here, the four, are all merged into one under Lighthouse. And so all the clients know us as Lighthouse CPAs.
Okay, wonderful. And you ended up purchasing firms in 2020, is that right? Did you purchase, one or two firms?
Yeah, and I bought a medium-sized firm that's actually about 2 hours away from where we were, and we were not going to keep an office there. And so, that's kind of a little bit risky, making sure that those clients move over. But I thought, everybody's so used to this COVID world now where people aren't seeing each other person to person. And so that practice actually moved into ours just fine. They're very happy. We have gone to visit them, a lot of them now, but some of them we still have not met face to face.
Yeah, and when you say medium-sized firm, what do you mean by that?
It was doing about 150,000.
150,000 a year, and is that a one or two person?
It was a one-person firm, and he had some helpers, and we just merged all of that work into our office, and okay. So it worked out pretty well.
And how do you find these firms? Like, how do you know? We talked a little bit about the last episode, but you clearly have this growth strategy of mergers and acquisitions. Do you work with a broker? Do you look at lists? What do you look for, and how do you find them?
Lots of times I just go out and search the internet to see what firms are available for sale. And lots of times they end up being through a broker. Sometimes they're not. And then I get information on them and start looking at what that business looks like. And will their business model fit pretty well with what we're doing? Do they have sort of the same types of clients? So when we pull them in, we'll be able to service them well. And the one that we picked up in late 2020 was almost all business clients. He only had a few dozen straight 1040 clients that didn't own a business. And that's really the model that we've been working towards, is not really taking in lots of 1040s that are just 1040 clients. We're looking for business clients where we can help them with their business. We can help them with their accounting, their payroll, and we can give them advice too on buying and selling and things like that.
And did you find in 2020 of last year, was the listing price for the sale of the firm normal? Was it higher than usual, lower than usual because of 2020? Like, how did that impact prices, if at all?
He discounted it a little bit. He had some health issues and he wanted out. And so it was just barely under 1 times revenue, but it was also a good mix of clients that fit with our practice. And so it was worth that to us.
Yeah. And the team members, you said, this individual had some helpers. Do you bring them with you, or are you able to absorb, did you have to increase headcount to absorb that practice at all, or how did that work?
We did not increase headcount. In this particular case, we were able to pick it all up without making those changes. his helpers were mostly interns from the college that came in and helped him during tax season. And so he didn't have any full-time employees on staff at the time. So we just pulled him in that way.
Yeah. Is that the ideal, is to get, purchase a firm without any employees? Is that your preferred option, or is this opportunistic purchase?
You know what? It depends on what you find, because when you go out searching, you got to look at, what's out there, what fits, because sometimes we run into ones that are like all 1040 and they work on an H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt formula, even though they may not be one of those companies, where the people come in and they interview them and they do their tax returns right there and things like that. And that's just not the way that we're going to operate. So that knocks out some firms that are for sale right away. We look at how are they operating, how are we operating, will they fit? The new one that I'm in the process of buying, hopefully will close in the next 2 or 3 weeks. It was a 4-person firm and the owner's going away, but 3 of those people are going to come work for us. So.
Got it. And what is the plan to, bring them into the Lighthouse ecosystem, if you will? Like, how do you think about those remaining 3 employees? Is there a lot that you have to kind of work on to bring them into Lighthouse? Or, are they essentially working with the same clients the same way? How does that work?
They're working a little bit differently. And one of our big priorities when we purchase a firm is to try to make as few changes that are noticeable to the client right away. And when you're bringing on team members, you don't want to make radical changes in what they do, because they're comfortable with what they're doing, and change is always hard for people. So even if you have some ideas for how maybe things could change or improve, you want to move a little slowly on those changes, because you don't want to lose those employees. They're hard to replace right now, and the clients are used to working with them. And so you don't want to, you might change some internal procedures a little bit, but you don't want to change things that the client sees immediately. You want to build up their trust, make sure that they know that you're there to work with them. And then if you want to recommend changes, you can. The practice we bought last fall, we've started approaching some of our clients with some things that they could change or do that could improve their business. And now they're ready to listen to us, because we've been through a tax season with them. We've been through a year-end close with them. They know that we're always there looking out for them. I think if you go in right away and say, oh, we're going to change everything we do for you, well, then why stick around with you? They could go somewhere else and get all that changed too. They want their stuff done, and they don't want radical upfront changes.
Yeah. What's an example? So you're about 9 months after acquisition. What's an example of some of the changes you've started to either implement or think about implementing for that cohort of clients?
Well, one of our clients had a lot of problems getting workers' compensation. He actually sells guns and he's a gun range. And so there's a lot of risks in workers' compensation and other insurance things. So he had gone with a leasing company, and we found that we could move him over to a payroll platform that we use, and we could find him workers' comp and save him about $12,000 a year doing that. And he's thrilled, but I didn't want to come to him with that kind of a solution the very first month out of the box. We needed to build up enough trust so he knew that we weren't just trying to change something or make some money off of something. We were looking out for his best interest.
Do you ever, speaking of which, do you ever increase prices? Like, have you ever acquired a firm that is so underpriced that a year later you start increasing prices, or is that kind of like a disaster waiting to happen?
That's one of the things that I always look at when I'm looking at it. How are they pricing their clients? And of course, you don't know the specific work they're doing, but you look at their pricing for tax returns and for their accounting, and you can kind of compare it with yourself, and it's got to be fairly close, because if they're way underpriced, you're going to be in a hole for a long time. Because when you first get them, you can't add 50% to their price if they're way, way underpriced. I mean, that'll shake them up. And even if they go quote at other places and find out that is the current price, that's still just not a good way to start. And so I've turned down some firms when I've looked at them because I look at their pricing and I go, we just can't do this. And lots of times the owner goes, yeah, I haven't raised my prices in 10 years. We raise prices on our clients. We try very hard to make sure we do it every single year for our clients, just a little bit every year. Because if you go up 2, 3, 4% every single year, that's so much easier than waiting 5 years and then trying to give them a 10 or 12% increase. They freak out. And so you've got to constantly be changing your prices. And especially in today's environment where inflation's going crazy and it's so hard to find good workers and they're going to become a lot more expensive, we've got to make sure that we pass through price increases right now on a regular basis, or we're going to find that we're in a hole and we're not making the kind of money that we should be making because we didn't pay attention.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned talent a couple times. What are you seeing on the talent acquisition front? Like how much harder has it become? Like, do you have examples of trying to hire folks for your firm, and is the salary expectation now 20% higher what it used to be, or is it just like you're not getting as many applicants? Like, what's that world look like?
It's a lot more of an applicant problem. Because I'm buying this other firm, one of my key people that's in my office now is going to go over and run that firm for me. And so I've got to replace that person with at least somebody. And I've posted some job postings, and usually I would get enough applicants in 4 or 5 days that I would turn off a job posting, because usually there would be at least a couple good people in that group. I ran it for 3 weeks and got a lot of people who were not up at the level that I wanted. And 2 of them looked really good on paper, but when we checked their references, they were not good. And for one of the positions, because I ran ads at different levels, and the position for a CPA or CPA eligible person, I got 0 applications in 3 weeks, none.
And what did you use to get dozens? How?
Yeah, yes. And lots of times that dozen you would get in 3 or 4 days, not in 3 weeks. But on that particular one, we got none. The company where we were posting said, look, your job application thing is right. You're in the right price range. And so I ran one of those. I ran a full charge bookkeeper, and I ran a tax preparer that was not a seasonal job. And I got some applicants for those, but none of them were really very well qualified. So talent is a huge problem right now.
So what's the thesis on where's all the talent? Like, I mean, they didn't all go in caves. Where did they go? Where are they? Are they not moving out of organizations? Like, where'd they all go, do you think?
I don't know. Some of the lower level ones may be just staying home with the unemployment, or in some cases, they've got issues with kids and daycare still. Not here in Florida so much, because Florida's been quite open, but there's still some limitations on daycare for people if they've got small kids. I think a lot of people that would have graduated with accounting degrees last year didn't because of COVID. And I'm not sure on the rest of it. I know everybody in any of my networking groups that I belong to, every week when we meet, at least several of them talk about not having enough staff. One of them runs 2 UPS stores, and he's down by, I think, 5, maybe 6 people. And so as the owner, he's going crazy trying to keep the stores open. And you hear that over and over again. People, there's just a huge shortage.
Talent shortage. Yeah. So what's the alternative? I mean, are you thinking about outsource hiring, or going with firms that help you outsource, or like how do you
We've
combat the talent problem?
we've actually been doing some work with an outsource company that's located in Hawaii. Their workers are in India. That, there's always some communication issues and things, but I think that's going to work to help provide us with some of our sourcing. Those are the kinds of people that can lots of times do the front end 70 or 80% of the work, and then somebody in the office can finish it up and be the person that communicates with the client. We may still need one more person to be able to do that effectively in office, because we like to be able to talk to our clients. I've come across, last year we used somebody who did a lot of our 1040 work out of a different state, all remotely, and that worked really well. This year we actually moved a lot of those clients over to that person, so she now has those 1040s and we're not even dealing with them. There's another possible person up in New York that may work for us remotely, so it could be looking for remote workers.
I see.
It's a complicated process.
Yeah, and so prior to COVID, you had posted and you were getting dozens of local applicants. Now you started to open up the pool to just anywhere in the U.S., and that's where you're seeing the opportunity is get somebody from Colorado or New York or wherever, and that's kind of where the job market's currently at.
I think a lot of people are liking remote working.
Yeah, well, this is to peel back the curtains, almost never do on the podcast, right? When we were thinking about it internally, we said, oh, should we go back to the office? Should we go hybrid? Should we go remote? And in some ways, I don't know if the odds are really like this. It's not really up. I mean, it's up to me, or it's up to us, but it's also up to the applicant pool and the talent ecosystem. And so, it seems like every firm is going to have to at least be, and every company is going to have to at least be bare minimum hybrid now if they want to compete in any meaningful way on talent. And so everybody's going to have a remote protocol for their firm. It's a shift. We kind of saw it coming, but we didn't see the talent impact that would drive it. That's what's so surprising.
And you know what, we have been pretty much all web-based. So when COVID hit, and when we go looking for outside talent, it's not too hard because almost everything we have is web-based. And so we have the infrastructure there to be able to be able to utilize remote workers.
Yeah. Do you have any workflow software recommendations that you would plug?
We love Jetpack. No, I'll tell you what, my office loves Jetpack. It works for us.
Yeah, great. We love it. We love working with you, obviously. So going back to the mergers and acquisitions, what are your plans now? So you're going to be closing on one soon, a couple days, maybe a couple weeks. Do you keep acquiring firms every quarter, or is it kind of like let's settle where we're at now for a couple years? Like, how do you think about this?
I always think, oh, I'm ready to settle down. This is enough. And then every once in a while I go, oh, I had to go see what's available. And then I find some stuff and I look at it and go, oh, this one could work. So I don't know.
What do you think is
the right long range plan?
Okay. But is there a cap, like, of how many, like, you can't, for example, acquire more than one firm a month or one firm a quarter? Like, how much time do you need to integrate before you go look for the next one?
You know what? You need a lot more than a month, and really even a lot more than a quarter. You've got to bring those new clients in and do work for them for a while, because that trust relationship takes a little while to build up. They usually just take you, accept you. You don't usually lose a lot of clients right away, as long as you don't make too many changes. And what they're doing is they're going, well, if I have to go look, I got to go do all these other things. So yeah, we'll give them a chance. And you've got that chance to prove to them that you're going to take care of them and that you care about them. They're not just somebody that you're trying to charge money to.
Yeah, That makes sense. So you recommend what, at least 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? I mean, depending on the size of the
Depends
acquisition.
on the size and things, but it could take you a year to really get it stabilized, get all the relationships in, get everything going the way you need it to. There's a lot of extra work to do it. It's not, oh, I just buy it and, oh, they're going to automatically do it the way we do it,
Yeah.
because those clients are used to somebody else doing it, and whoever that somebody else is doing some things differently than you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it more work, less work, the same amount of work to buy like a firm that has no employees as it is to, 3 or 4 employees? Is it comparable work? Like if somebody's listening right now and they're like, well, maybe I'll buy a one person firm because that feels easier or simpler or faster. Is it actually easier, or is it almost comparable amounts of work?
You know what? It really depends on the people that you get and the processes that they have, because you may be buying a problem employee. You may be buying a gold star employee, and you really don't know until you've done it for a while. And is this employee going to be willing to make some shifts over to you, or are they just so set that they only want to do it one way? So employees can kind of add stuff, but on the other hand, you're also balancing what you're getting to the client. And that client usually wants their stuff pretty much the same way consistently. So it's just an important balance.
Yeah. That brings up an interesting point. How, if at all, do you interview the employees during the acquisition investigation or the initial due diligence?
On the one that we're purchasing now, we met them, and the owner gave us background on them and told us what they did, how long they've been there, what kind of work skills they have. But, it's like, even when you do due diligence, you can't dig, you don't have time, for one, to dig super
Yeah,
deep. I mean, you can't go check every single tax return that they did or things like that. You have to just look at some things, look at the quality of work, look at their pricing on things and say, can we do it for that? And keep going forward.
yeah. Well, even in the interviewing process, right? Nobody has 100%
Oh,
success rate. So it's the same. It's the same, I guess, when you're buying a firm. You're going to get some great people, and sometimes you'll get somebody you thought was great, and they're just a great interviewer or
yeah,
presenter. Final question is, with your track record of buying these firms, if somebody is thinking about buying their first, maybe it's second or third, are there any things they should realize about financing that's important? Like, is it pretty standard banking relationship? Are there new financing options? Like, how are you financing these things, and how should maybe people listening think about financing?
Well, I'll actually give a plug for them. Live Oak Bank is
Live Oak
just
Bank.
done an excellent job. They have some specialties for different industries. So they've got a group of people in their bank who work on getting those SBA loans done for purchases of CPA firms. So I used them last fall. I'm using them now. They have a process that works. I went to some other banks, and if they don't know the accounting profession, and if they don't do lots of SBA loans, the SBA requires a ton of stuff in that documentation. If they don't have a good process for making sure that you've got it all and that it's all there and that they have a closing going, their process has worked really, really well. I've already recommended them to some people, because my bank, when I went to them, they said, well, we kind of have an SBA specialist and they're sort of over here. And Live Oak Bank has been doing an incredible job helping out accounting firms, and they do have some other niche markets that they concentrate on, but they find a market and they get really good at being able to read those financials and understand the deal and get it through and get it packaged up so that the SBA will back it so they can get it done.
That's really cool. It sounded like a commercial for them, but I honestly I have no affiliation with them, and I just love that it's a great resource for listeners. Are they, is it only based in Florida, or is it national
No.
representation?
I think they're in North Carolina.
Okay. Live owned big. Well, that's cool. We'll link it up in the show notes. And that's amazing. Well, Gretl, this has been just a lot of fun to talk about firm acquisitions. There's probably not many other people I could say that to, that it's, that we could just jump on for 30 minutes and chat M&A in the accounting space. If somebody wants to reach out, say, thank you for coming on, learn a little bit more about you and your story, what's the best way? Or maybe they want to sell their firm to you. I don't know. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
They can find our website, which is real simple, lighthousecpas.com, and that'll get us access over to them. And that's probably the easiest thing for them to remember too.
Okay. Are you going to be in the market in a couple months, in a couple quarters?
I don't know.
Okay. So if you're listening to this, we're in June 2021. So if you have a couple months after June, shoot Gretl a note. Maybe we'll catch her at the right time. Maybe she'll be looking to buy a firm. Maybe we could broker a deal sometime. So, well, Gretl, this has been great. For people that couldn't jot down all the notes, you can go to jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll do a full write-up. We'll link up to the bank that, or the SBA loan specialist that Gretl was talking about. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave a review. It helps us get the word out and deliver great content like we just heard from Gretl today. And if you really loved it, share with a fellow firm owner that needed to hear this type of information. Gretl, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you very much, David.